Hey planty people, it's Krista with Botanical Bird, and today I want to take you with me to see what my plant care looks like in a typical week. So I'm going to show you my general plant care routine, and I don't always stick to this to a T. It kind of depends on what I have going on that week, the amount of time that I have, and right now I've been working in a school district, and so I'm on summer and I have more time to obsess over my plants. But when my new job starts up again, I will have less time, and so I'm gonna have to kind of rework how I do things. So the plan of attack or plant of attack for this video is first I want to show you what daily plant care looks like for me. It's kind of just general taking a quick sweep of my apartment, mostly trying to increase humidity for my humidity loving plants, and then kind of putting out any fires that are super necessary. Like if I see a pest, maybe moving that plant so then I can treat the pest later. Then I want to break up the bulk of my plant care, which is on Saturday and Sunday. And Saturday I do significant deep plant care for all of my plants in my kitchen and dining room and living room. And then I do the same thing on Sunday, but for my plants in the bedroom and the bathroom. So I basically just split up the significant plant care over 2 days. I used to do it all on Sunday, but it took several hours and would eat up my Sunday. So I'm trying to make it more manageable and break it up because I've seen other planty people do that and it seems to work for them. And I'm going to speed up a lot of the video because you don't need to spend several hours watching me putter around my apartment. So things will be sped up and I will be doing a voiceover to kind of explain what's going on. So come along and let's check it out. Welcome to a typical day in the life of my plants. The first thing I do is I fill up my humidifier and set it to 70% humidity, and it will shut off when it reaches 70% and then turn back on when it's below that. Now you'll see me filling up pebble trays, which are just saucers underneath a couple of my plants that have pebbles in it, and then I fill up the water to the level of the pebbles, so as the water evaporates it sends the humidity to the leaves. I'm also just in general spraying all of my plants that are really picky, like calathea, with distilled water, and then typical tap water with any of my other plants that don't need distilled water. I'm also only going to show you a snippet of me misting because I don't think you need to watch me do it through my whole entire apartment. So that's just a brief overview of typical plant care, and then you'll see my in-depth plant care for Saturday and Sunday. Cheers! Hey, so welcome to Saturday Plant Care. Here I'm going to go in my closet and get all of my plant materials. I'm going to fill up my watering can with tap water, and then I'm going to go around and start touching all the soil and all of the plants to try to decide if it needs water. Here I'm using my hydrometer that I just got, and I want to show you the care card. So it says that I need to allow the top 1 to 2 inches of soil to dry, and when I look at the hydrometer, it says it's a 1 out of 1 to 10, so it's completely dry. And I'm going to wait to water it because if you looked on the card, it also said that I should be fertilizing it. I think it said once a month with half-strength fertilizer. So I'm going to put the care card on the counter and fertilize it at the very end with everything else that needs fertilizer. So just to go a little bit more into depth about the care cards that I have. So every plant that I have gets one. At the top it names their botanical name, and then it has their watering requirements, their light requirements, when I can fertilize them, and anything extra that I need to know, such as humidity requirements. So I stash those somewhere around the plant so that if I'm ever in question of whether or not it needs something, I can just look at that. So here you can see me switching out the water in a water propagation station I have. Anything propagating in water, I change it out every week. And I'm bringing my iPad along because I usually like to watch Netflix while I take care of plants on the weekend. And now here I want to show you a plant that does not need to be watered. So it's a 5 on the moisture scale, which means it's still moist. And the water requirement is to keep the soil slightly moist but not soggy. So I'm going to let that be for now. Now I'm rolling up the knitted plant koozie I have for this plant while I water it because I want to see and make sure the water drains through. When I water my plants, I wait until they really need it and then I give them a nice good soaking. Some plants I water in place if they have a plant saucer under them, and then other plants I take to the sink. It kind of just depends on a lot of different things. If they're in a cover pot, I often take the nursery pot out and water that at the sink, whereas if they have a plant saucer under them and a drainage hole in the pot that they're in, I often just water them in place. I've been taking things to the sink more frequently now because I hate going back through all of my plants and dumping out all the individual saucers. So it's kind of just preference. You'll also see me using my hydrometer pretty much on every single plant. This is a new tool for me, and so I was really excited to use it. But before I got it, I was just sticking my finger in the soil of every plant as far down as I could. And so I don't want to rely on my hydrometer too much, especially because I noticed it was saying that a lot of my plants were super dry, but then when I double checked with my finger, I still felt some moisture in the soil. So I'm thinking I'll use it maybe for my super precious plants or plants that are in really big pots. Next, I'm going to reach for this Hoya carnosa compacta, and I noticed that it has a lot of yellow leaves. So when I'm going into more in-depth plant care on the weekends, I also do some pruning or anything else that I see while I'm already with the plant. You'll see while I'm around here near all of my calathea that I'm using a couple of different methods of watering. So all of my calathea are divas, and so they get distilled water. I promised when I started to become a plant parent that I wouldn't be one of those plant parents who bought special water for their plants when I don't even drink special water, and yet here I am. And so a lot of them I'll use my jug of distilled water and I just put it in a mister and I water them with that. Now I have a ton of small succulents that are on either side of my big window here, so I'm popping in and out of frame a lot because you can't see them. But I'm basically just seeing if they need water. I do a lot of aeration of the soil with the knitting needle on these usually because I notice that the soil gets really compacted since I don't water it as often, and so I kind of make sure to stab around in the soil every time I water them. And as I said before, the weekend is the time where I kind of do really in-depth plant care. So as I'm caring for this crassula right here, I notice a small little spider web on the plant saucer, and that could be a spider web, and so I'm not trying to risk it, so I go and I clean it while I'm here. Next, when I take care of my hanging baskets, I get up on a little stool, and these are a bit more tricky to water. Most of them have a plant saucer under them, so I'll water them from the top, and then after the saucer is full enough, or I wait a little bit for the water to drain out, I'll pour the water from the saucer back into my watering can, kind of just tilting the plant. But as you could see with my Hoya Crimson Princess right there, I got a big plastic saucer right under it and just tried to water it and let the water pour down, but it kind of backfired. So here on this Hoya carnosa, I noticed that it's dry, but it needs to be fertilized, so I put the plant card back on the counter to water at the end. Just going back to refer to the materials I grabbed in the beginning, I have my watering can, my hydrometer, a knitting needle to stab around in plants and aerate the soil like I'm doing with this jade right now. It's usually when the soil kind of starts to pull away from the sides of the pot, or I notice that the soil is getting very compacted. That affects the ability for a plant's roots to get oxygen or even water. Alright, so we've made it to fertilization. So I'm going to dump out my watering can that has straight up tap water, and then I'm going to fill it with my pre-mixed mixture of liquid plant fertilizer and water. And I just water it the same way that I would water any plant that's not being fertilized. And then I use a dry erase marker to write the date that I'm fertilizing it, so whenever I look at it, I know the last time that I fertilized that plant. And so most plants kind of have a similar fertilization schedule, I found, at least for my plants, but some it's different, and I definitely fertilize different plants at different times, and there's no way I can remember. So I find that my dry erase marker method is really helpful. And with all of my plants, I like to let them kind of chill either in the sink or in their plant saucer for a while so all the water can drain out before I dump it, because I don't want the roots to sit in excess water and get root rot. All right, y'all, that's it for Saturday. Let's move on to Sunday's plant care. Happy Sunday! We've made it! So I'm in my bedroom and I'm going to take care of these plants and the one in my bathroom. My air plants have special care, so I'm going to grab each of them and then I'm going to go fill up a tub with tap water and I'm going to soak them in there for 20 minutes. And then I generally don't pick up every single plant like you see me do in this video. This is just so I can show them to you and so I'm not giving you my backside the entire time. Here I am switching out the water in my Monstera adansonii cuttings. Like I said, all of my water propagations get fresh water every week. You don't want water to get too murky or stagnant because then pests like fungus gnats will inhabit the space. Another tool that I forgot to mention earlier that I take with me for my plant care is a rag, and that's really helpful because I frequently spill dirt or water or anything, or even just to wipe off the hydrometer after sticking it in the soil. I always use that rag. Similar to how I mentioned that I sometimes water plants in my kitchen sink, if the plants are in my bedroom or bathroom and I want to water them but not in their saucers, I'll often take them to the bathtub. With this variegated string of pearls, you could see me move the pot up and down, and what I was doing then was I was kind of trying to test the weight of the pot, which is another way I use to tell if a plant needs to be watered. So it kind of depends on the plant, but my general rule of thumb is that I stick my finger in the soil to see if it's dry. Another way is to kind of squish the leaves of the plant depending on the sort of plant, like especially if it's a peperomia, because if they're very pliable, that means that it needs to be watered. And then the last way I'll use sometimes for different plants is to see if the plant just looks sad or droopy. Here I'm trying to get kind of creative with how I water the plants because like I said, I hate dumping out individual saucers, and so I'm like watering different plants on top of other plants, or eventually I grab a bin of water and then I just pour the excess water into that bin because I'm always trying to think of efficiency, and if I have over 100 plants to take care of, I'm not trying to spend my entire day taking care of them. Some random other notes about plant care are that I generally wait to clean my apartment until after I've done plant care for the week because like I said, I tend to spill lots of dirt and make a mess. And then also I don't have a specific watering schedule for any plant except for one of mine. It's a maidenhair fern and she's known to be picky as hell, and so I water her every other day. But every other plant, I don't have a specific, like, I water every week or every 2 weeks. It's just when the soil is at the dryness level that is okay for that plant, and then I water it. This peperomia frost is a great example of me kind of squeezing the leaves to see how pliable they are. Peperomia are known for their leaves becoming really flimsy when they need water, and so for those specifically, I'll kind of try to fold the leaves and see how easily they fold before I water. As you can see, I do a lot of back and forth walking while I'm watering some plants. I'm giving other plants the opportunity to have the water drain out, and I take a lot of trips, which is helpful when you have a small apartment. Another thing I keep an eye out for on deep plant care days are pests and then just like anything funky with the dirt. So with this ivy, I see that there's a lot of roots sticking out of the dirt. So what I'm gonna go do now is go grab soil and cover the roots with it. Just anything I need to do to take care of plants that takes more time, I usually do on the weekends. Phew, what a busy 20 minutes, y'all. They said we couldn't do it, but we proved them wrong. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please comment below with your favorite planty routine care tips and tricks that you've picked up along the way. And if you liked the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Botanical Bird, 2 separate words, and bird has a U in it, not an I. And follow my planty Instagram, which is @botanical_bird. All right, everyone, don't forget, I'm rooting for you. Bye.